Hey there. I'm excited to announce this to you today. This is what you've been waiting for in your spiritual quest. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I'm finally ready to announce it that it's ready to go. It's the Grief to Growth Community Circle. Now, this is a sanctuary where like-minded souls are united in their journey through grief and towards personal transformation. It's more than just a place. It's a beginning. It's a commitment to growth and understanding. Here you're finding not just a community, but you're entering a circle of trust and depth. You're going to engage with interactive coursework. You'll dive into exclusive podcast episodes and partake in discussions that illuminate the path from mourning to empowerment. This is a realm where every question is honored and every individual's journey is validated. To be part of this exclusive circle, visit us at grieftogrowth.com/community or look for the chat icon at the bottom of every page on the main website. Remember that entry is a privilege because I want to ensure that every member is as dedicated and genuine as you are. You must apply to join, but the journey within is worth every step. So go ahead and join us today. Check it out, grieftogrowth.com/community, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Hi there. Welcome to Grief to Growth podcast. Your host is Brian Smith, spiritual seeker, best-selling author, grief survivor, and life coach. Brian believes that the worst tragedies of life provide the greatest opportunity for growth. Brian says he was planted, not buried, and he is here to help you grow where you've been planted by the difficulties in life. In each episode, Brian and his guests will share what has helped them to survive and thrive. It is his sincere hope this episode helps you today.
Hey, everybody. This is Brian Smith back with another episode of Grief to Growth. And I've got with me today Sarah Brassard. And I think that's the correct pronunciation of your name, Sarah. Mm-hmm. Sarah Brassard. Sarah is an empowerment advocate, an intuitive healer, a meditation teacher, and an author. And I'm going to read Sarah's introduction here, and then we're just going to have a conversation. So for the last 20 years, Sarah has been guiding women from a place of struggle in life to one of grace, peace, and ease through her signature process of sacred self-care. Sarah is the author of Inside, a guide to the resources within you to stay vibrant and alive through all life challenges. And her book hit the shelves in summer of 2012. The book details the self...
Excuse me, 2018. Sorry.
I'm sorry, 2018. I don't know why I said 2012. In the summer of 2018, the book details the self-care practices that sparked Sarah's healing journey. Her work is ignited by enthusiastic dedication to integrating body, mind, heart, and spirit, as well as an unshakable conviction that there's nothing in life that can't be healed. So, Sarah, that's quite a resume, and welcome to Grief to Growth.
Thank you so much, Brian. Happy to be here with you.
So I want to talk about your book, and I want to talk about your work. But first, I want to talk about Sarah, find out more about you and what got you to the point in life where you are doing this work. So tell me about Sarah.
Well, for my learning, it was the loss of both my parents at a young age. My mom left my home when I was 13, and my father died when I was 16. So what started off, I mean, really the only life I knew was pretty settled, pretty wonderful up until 13 years old, and then everything shifted. And so at that time, I really was that person that was more interested in not letting anybody know the level of trauma that I had experienced, because there was so much shame around what had happened. And, that huge weight that we wear right when we're left, what is that message? I wasn't worth staying for, I'm not good enough. All of these references that are so devastating to us as human beings. So I actively worked towards creating something that no one would ever know, how much I had lost. Of course, we know that's not really ever going to happen because everybody does know, but that's the mask I wore. And became an entrepreneur very, very young. I opened a business at 21, married at 25, had 2 children, life looked pretty darn good from the outside. Mm-hmm. And then the cracks started to appear in my early 30s when I started to have a lot of physical references, right? So pneumonia set in, shingles, all these sort of really crazy things happened and I was a very young woman at that time, right? But it was the wake-up call that I needed because it sent me on a course of learning that, I wouldn't have otherwise done.
Yeah, I was reading your bio this morning, and you were saying that I guess when your mother passed, or your mother left and your father passed, you said you were a spiritual person before that. Is that correct?
Well, my dad was an Episcopalian minister, mm-hmm. and he really settled into this way of learning through spirituality. Mm-hmm. Very involved with nature. Just loved the stars and astrology. There was just a lot of that in my young life, mm-hmm. and I'm so grateful for that because it really connected the universe, God, to me at a very young age. Mm-hmm. With that said, when it all happened, I didn't walk away from nature, but I sure did walk away from God. It was like, wow. And so it's really been, how do I come back to that beautiful thing that I experienced? I think oftentimes, Brian, and I'm sure you can relate to this, when there is a traumatic event that happens, anything good in that past is sort of shrouded by the trauma, right?
Absolutely.
So it's sort of like, I couldn't even access those memories, those happy memories that I had as a young person. It was just like, it all sucked, right? It was all terrible. And so getting back to this place of, wow, wait, there was some really beautiful experiences in there. Mm-hmm. And that's been part of the most beautiful part of recovering from that for me, really.
Yeah, I find that it seems to be a pretty common thing that we're going along. We've got this spirituality or whatever it is, whether it's a religion or just a natural spirituality, and then these traumas in life hit us and just mm-hmm. knock us completely for a loop. And as you said, then everything's bad. We just go to this dark place and everything's bad. And so you were able to cope with that for, sounds like, a couple of decades, and then things kind of started slowly falling apart.
Yeah, they did. I was overusing substances, to manage. That was a big thing, that there started to be like this dependence. I don't ever really put myself in that place of being an alcoholic, or, I was using marijuana in ways to manage my sadness. But it started to be very secretive, particularly the pot smoking mm-hmm. And then there were these kids, my two kids. And I remember looking at them, at night while they were sleeping and just thinking, God, I've got to figure this out, because I'm going to pass this stuff right on to them. Yeah. And I think children do that for us. I'm so grateful because I was such a young mom that I had them, that it was really this wake-up call, like, whoa, you've got to figure this out, girl, because you're going to go down, and so are they.
Yeah.
So it was a bigger responsibility, not just to myself, but also to my children.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. When you go through this trauma, and then you look at your children and you say, okay, I don't want to pass this on to them, so what am I going to do about it? So what did you do then?
Well, for me, it became a deep study. So I owned a clothing store. I always find this very interesting because, you can tell I sort of went for putting the outer construct together rather than the inner construct, mm-hmm. right? So mm-hmm. I had a successful women's clothing store for 10 years. And when I sold that, when we had the kids, when my youngest went to first grade, I went into a really deep study of the physical body. I became a massage therapist, and I went into this 2-year program, and we did cadaver work, and it was just, all this sort of deep study about the physical body.
Wow.
And of course it embodied, the emotional, the mental too, and how that all interacts with one another. That led me then on a course of study for meditation and yoga and somatic work and, the esoteric work. And then ultimately I became an interfaith minister too. So I just kind of followed this thread of, I couldn't get enough. I was so excited to learn. And in that learning, I felt deep healing for my life too. Yeah.
Wow. So at some point you discovered, I think, Kundalini yoga. What is Kundalini yoga?
So Kundalini yoga is a very different type of yoga. It is a yoga that really embodies this understanding of the energy centers. I don't know if your audience understands chakras. Is that a familiar term for you?
Yeah, that would definitely be familiar. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's all about raising energy from the lowest chakras, the lower triangle, if you will, which is sort of foundation and procreation and power, right? Our personal power, and bringing that energy up through the heart center and sort of transforming it. So it also is a highly disciplined practice. So we do yoga to sit in meditation, and through pranayama and work with the glandular system, there's this healing, that happens through a dedicated practice. And I always say that Kundalini yoga helped me pick up the sword, to really cut through what no longer served me. I truly believe, Brian, that, who doesn't want to get well? Who doesn't want to get well? And, I went from judging that, and being very judgy as a novice, to understanding that we don't get well because we're just not strong enough yet to get well, right? It's, how much work it takes to walk this path, and, to have the brave approach to say, when something happens and it feels very personal and very harmful, to actually, instead of blaming another, you look into yourself. That takes a lot of strength. And Kundalini yoga, to this day, I still teach it. It's not my primary focus. I don't want to impose my spiritual practices on others. It's not what my book is about. It's really just my seat. It's what got me there and what continues to get me there every single day.
Okay. So would you call Kundalini yoga a spiritual practice then?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's kind of connecting the mind and the body and spirit all together, I assume. Is that right?
It is. And, I'm in a book right now that was written quite a while ago called Medical Meditations, and the ability for this extraordinarily profound yoga to heal us at all levels. And there's just all sorts of statistics and examples of this work doing that.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your signature process of self-care now. Well, the first thing I think we need to talk about self-care, because I think it's, I don't want to stereotype, but let's just say a lot of us have a problem with the whole idea of self-care. We're supposed to be here for other people, and it's selfish to take care of ourselves. So have you run across that when you're talking to people about this audacious self-care that you're talking about?
Oh, I think it's the biggest thing we deal with, isn't it? How in the midst of all this huge life can we actually take time for ourselves? And I think what happens in the work I do with people, at least now with this book, is it's about creating this foundation. It's the simplest of practices, right? It's swinging your legs over the bed in the morning before you step on the ground and taking 3 deep breaths. Wow, how profound is that? But it's not like once in a while, right? It's a dedicated practice. So the initial stages of work that I do with people, it's really about building that foundation. How do we carve that time? And we're not talking about a lot of time. We're talking about 3 to 6 minutes a day. if I can help people form that foundation, then I usually work with people for about 9 months. We can take it anywhere they want it to go, but without that foundation of getting there every single day and creating some level of personal practice, I'm not an effective teacher. I'm not an effective coach. So based on that, we can really build and grow and heal all sorts of things for folks. But I think what the foundation also does, Brian, which is fantastic, is when we make any level of effort to come back to ourselves every single day, that we start to inspire the witness consciousness, right? The observer to show up. And the biggest success I have with myself and with those I work with is the understanding of when we are in anxiety, when we are in that response.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey there, something I want to tell you about today. My podcast platform, Buzzsprout, has recently made it easier for me to allow you to support me financially. Go to www.grieftogrowth.com/subscribe. That's grief, the number 2, growth.com/subscribe. And once you're there, you can sign up to support me financially. Now, you can do it for as little as $3 a month, or of course, as much as you'd like. If you do that, you'll get access to bonus episodes, and you'll see those in the regular feed. They'll have a lock on them. But when you become a subscriber, you'll actually get access to your own private feed, and you'll be able to listen to the regular podcast along with the bonus podcast for the subscribers. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for sharing the podcast. And I want to thank those of you who support me financially. Have a great day, and on to the episode. You touched on a term there. I want to make sure everybody understands. You talked about the witness consciousness or the observer. So explain what that is.
So it's not the ego. How about that? There is this in the book. I call it the observer. It's this objective view of oneself. So we're in an interaction. We have a reaction, and we can ride that wave, right? Or the observer would be more that objective view that would say, another thing I wrote about is the stop, look, and listen. That's the observer. Let's stop before we move on. Let's assess, right? Let's listen to what's going on. Let's look at what's going on and make a decision before the reaction, the knee-jerk reaction happens. And that's really where I find, you're a coach too, and you could probably speak to this too. That's where I find the most power is, because all of a sudden somebody goes, whoa, I would have ridden that wave or gone down that rabbit hole. And wow, not only was that incredible self-care to take care of myself, because it creates boundaries, right? It gives us permission. And it also supported someone else too. How beautiful is that?
Yeah. And I did want to make sure we go over that, because I think it's been a new concept to me over the last 10 or 15 years. I think it might be a new concept to a lot of people that are listening. This idea that we're not all the things that are going on in our head. We're not our thoughts. We're not our ego. We're not even our mind. That we are like the observer beyond that. And it's a difficult shift to make from our daily lives of getting confused with, we even think we're our bodies. So this practice that you're talking about is something that can help me to get to that mindset. And I heard you say 3 to 6 minutes a day, so I don't have to sit for an hour or 45 minutes or anything like that.
No. And, I have people say to me, how is that ever going to do anything for me? And then they do it. And the thing is, it's every single day, right? It's not once in a while. This is dedicated practice, dedicated daily practice. And it's astounding how your world opens up with just that small amount of time. I find that people now, I have a woman now that I've worked with, I think 7 months, and she is sitting for an hour because just that 3 to 6 minutes opened up this window of, oh my God, why wouldn't I do this longer? It's so fabulous,
Yeah.
But initially it's very hard for people to carve time out, and it's understandable. So we start small. We start really small.
Yeah, I think that's great, because I know I actually I was talking with another coach. We were talking about the whole idea of meditation, and she was a meditation practitioner for years. And then, she kind of gave it up because it felt forced. And people, when you say meditation, they're like, oh, I have to sit for an hour. I don't have time to do that. So you're saying this is a practice where I don't necessarily have to sit for a long time, and I can start small, and maybe then if I enjoy it, I can do more.
Well, yes, and I'm pretty strict about it. Truthfully, I don't want them going any more than 6 minutes.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, for the first 40 days, it is only 3 to 6 minutes, and initially 3. Maybe in total, because you get there and you light your candle or whatever you decide to do in your sacred space.
Right.
But initially, it's a very, very short amount of time. And it is to really prove to them that so much can happen in just that little bit of dedicated time.
Wow. So is it like 3 minutes once a day? Is that it?
Yeah.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds like something that's not too intimidating that people could do.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And that's the other thing, right? Is that we don't need one more thing to make us feel unsuccessful. We've tried it. It didn't work. When, people talk about it, why isn't it working for me?
Yeah.
I want people to feel successful in this process. And it's a great amount of success when they can do that.
So, so if I get the book tells me about the process. Is that what's in the book, or what's in the book?
Yes.
Okay.
The book really is built on these 40 practices that I put in. I actually just published this week the companion journal to my book,
Okay.
which I love because I pushed back with my publisher regarding the practices, because I'm personally not somebody that will pick up a book and start writing in a book that I'm reading or even practice the practices. So I was really strongly suggesting we do the companion journal. So I'm thrilled about this opportunity.
Okay.
But it is really, again, just this soft, gentle approach to looking at self-care as the portal to any level of spiritual practice. So it's not about telling you what to do as far as spiritual practice. It's about how do we build a base, a foundation for you to take your spirituality anywhere you want to go.
Okay. So this is more, as you say, it's kind of a baseline working on ourselves to get ready for whatever our preferred spiritual practice might be.
That's right. Although I do give you practices to do, and I do break it down into, I always say with people, what element, as I call it, physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual, is screaming the loudest. So when I meet with people, it's like, what's screaming the loudest? Because that's where we're going to go first.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so I break the book down into the 4 elements and kind of walk you through this holistic approach to spiritual self-care.
Okay. Now, did I hear you say 40 practices in the book?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is based upon, I guess, the journey that you've had and the things that you discovered that work for yourself. Is that right?
Right. And, I am a longtime Kundalini yoga teacher. So, I always sort of come from that place of wanting the practices to be very accessible. There's an index in the book. There's also a list of practices in the back of the book for teachers and people that also want to support others in doing this work.
So over the course of these initial 40 days, am I doing the same thing every day, or is it like as a process I'm doing different things?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
You're doing the same thing. And that's a lot of the work I do in the beginning. It could be breath work. It could be opening the body in a certain way. I'm a big advocate too of the energy medicine. So there's usually a sequence of energy medicine that people can work with throughout the day. I really, again, want to go back to the fact that my biggest motivation right now is to teach people when are you in an anxiety response, and what tool can you bring to the moment right now to take you from a 10 to a 0.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, so we're working on developing this observer mindset so that we can understand where we're in the anxiety response, and then you're giving us tools when we're in that response to bring it down.
That's right.
Oh wow, that sounds fantastic. I know a lot of people that I deal with, are talking to, they're dealing with a lot of anxiety, and we don't know how to deal with it. And I was talking with someone just the other day, and of course, all her friends and her doctors like, you just need to go on medication. And, and there's a place for medication. There's a time for medication. So there's nothing wrong with that. But, she's like, I don't want to just cover it up with medication. I don't want to just zombie out. I want to understand what's going on with myself and figure out, how do I deal with this?
Yes. Yes. Well, so let's just get back to the self-care thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what if we sort of restructure, like if you have the tools to take yourself from an activation, a 10 activation, even to a 2 or a 3,
mm-hmm.
right? That's beautiful self-care. I mean, and look at the gift that's offering the world, like, I personally right now happen to have a lot of things going on with an aging parent and, some illness in our family. And,
mm-hmm.
and it's just, I always feel that the universe gives me these beautiful lessons for a reason, but I find myself in a heightened state, lately quite a bit. And I just pull these tools out, and I can be anywhere. Yesterday I was sitting in a hospital with somebody I love, so I can start applying these tools in all sorts of environments and
mm-hmm.
take myself from here to here. And once you're below a 5 in an activation, you can start making some sensible decisions rather than these, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm freaking out, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. The first thing is you have to bring that anxiety level down so you can get that fear brain turned off, and then you can actually think rationally. Because when that's kicking in, you can't even think rationally.
It's so scary.
But you touched on a really good point there about, self-care. And I was raised as a fundamentalist, Pentecostal. And I remember this acronym they would use for joy: Jesus, others, and you. So first we were supposed to be, responsible to Jesus, then other people. And then we were always last. And that was what, that was taught. And it's great to be unselfish, of course. But if you don't take care of yourself, you can't be there for other people. So as you're going through the situations, as you said, like with an aging parent, which I'm going through with my in-laws, so I can perfectly understand what you're saying. And my wife's going through it more importantly with her, because it's her mother. It's a lot. And people of our generation, or they call it the sandwich generation. So we've got, the mother-in-law on the one hand, and then I've got a daughter who's still in grad school that I'm still, somewhat responsible for. And if we just spin ourselves out taking care of other people, then we've got nothing left for ourselves, and then we're not going to be there for the other people.
That's so true. It's so true. And I think too that I heard a term the other day and I really loved it, and it was this lifestyle medicine, that learning these tools, to take care of ourselves and really shift the way that we do life, right? This is the ultimate self-care, because it's actually my father-in-law too, who's aging. So I respond to what you just said about your mother-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
But very, very successful guy, never cultivated any tools, never. So now, no matter what, right, Brian, we're all going to experience some level of extraordinary vulnerability at some time in our life. Because we're aging, we're human.
Yeah.
So the time to learn these tools is not in crisis.
Yeah.
So that lifestyle medicine thing, like if I can start to learn about a lifestyle that's really supportive, and I can pull these tools out from various places and really apply them to these situations when now I understand I'm in an activated state, my God, it's it's a gift.
Yeah, but one thing, Sarah, about being human, you're right. The time to learn these tools is when you're not in crisis. That's not how we operate. As humans, we and it's interesting because I interview people who are functioning at a very high level, who have learned these things, but it almost always comes from a place of extreme trauma. Not that they did anything wrong, but there's something about the human nature. As long as something is quote unquote working, we keep doing it until it's causing us so much pain that we're forced to do something else. Right.
I totally agree with that. I reference taking these lessons, right, that we learn through these times of crisis, mm-hmm. and really not taking advantage of it. Like really make it worth everything it can be. Like if you're there, listen, do something about it, because many people, we know, right? They'll pick another option. They'll drink it away. They'll drug it away. They'll do something to get it away. And sadly, then in these stages of our life where we might not be as susceptible to learning, like as we age, we find ourselves pretty bankrupt as far as opportunity to do something about these extraordinary feelings we're feeling,
Yeah, exactly. There's these coping mechanisms, these ways of dealing with the realities of the world. You're right. We can find ourselves, especially as we age and we don't have the cognitive ability or the physical strength or whatever it might be to cope with them. Then we're in crisis without really tools to get out of it. So it's great to know that something like this is available.
Yeah.
And that it's, fairly easy. It doesn't require any particular, faith or religion. I know, again, coming from my background, a lot of people will hear the word yoga and say, can't do that because that's a bad thing. Even when I started meditating, I had people that were concerned that I was meditating because they thought, that was a bad thing. Now, if I used the word contemplative prayer, then it was okay. You can pray for, for half an hour or 15 minutes, but you meditation, no, you should not do that.
But isn't it the same, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's all the same, and it's just words. It's just a means of getting inside. I think it's beautiful. It's
well, again, this whole idea even of turning inside, I think that for people in our culture might be a foreign idea, right? We're so externally focused. And to say, let's turn inside, let's look at our mind, let's figure out how. I'm reading a book right now called Mind Hacking. Let's examine our mind. Let's think about how it works and what it is and who we are. I think that's becoming more prevalent in our society, but it's not mainstream yet.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hi there. I'm really excited to tell you about my latest ebook. It's 4 lessons that you can learn from the near-death experience without going through all the trouble of dying to learn them. I've been studying NDEs for several years now. I am completely convinced that not only are they 100% real, but that there's some very universal wisdom that we can get from the near-death experience. And I've distilled that down in this book into 4 short lessons. And I've also given you all the reasons why I believe that NDEs are absolutely real. So go to www.grieftogrowth.com/NDE lessons to pick it up for free. www.grieftogrowth.com/NDE lessons. I hope you enjoy it.
No, it isn't. It isn't, and I think the very scary thing about having our focus be on outer circumstances is that, of course, we know, right, that everything's changing always. And so there's really no security. And especially somebody from my background where there was this tremendous amount of loss, that was my biggest fear. I'm either going to be left for another woman or my husband's going to die. And so it really, I started to understand that I had to start developing this relationship was something that was never going to change.
Yeah.
That was never going to leave me. And that's my spirit. That's my soul. That's God. That's the universe. And so I did it from that place, that said, gosh, I do need to hold on to something, but everything outside is so undependable.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really excellent point. And, I was kind of raised to to control my circumstances, right? You're a man, go out and control your circumstances. So we try to do that. And then we realize you're only human. There are only so many, you literally can't control anything outside of yourself.
That's right.
So all we can control is how we respond to things. That's a difficult lesson to learn. As you said, the one thing that does remain the same is ourselves, and getting to know ourselves, and getting to to be happy or to be content, I guess, in all circumstances. And so we have this illusion of control, though, and we kind of have to, right? We have to have this assumption that when we leave the house in the morning, we're going to come back. When our spouse leaves to go to work, that they're not going to get killed, that our kids are going to be okay when they go to school. You have to have that to function. But then when these traumas come along that just knock you off the course and totally knock those assumptions aside, then we have to figure out, where do I go from here?
That's right. And that's real life in our world right now, sadly, isn't it? It's I think, becoming more and more and more important every single day that I was watching the news last night, and I was, kind of had a heavy day, and I just turned that news off, and I was just like, good God, how do people do this that don't have any tools? That just watching that has thrown me into an anxiety response.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that any small effort that we can make towards ourselves every single day can shift things profoundly. But I always say to my students and to the people I work with, don't trust me, because this is my truth. Right. It's not going to be your truth until it's your experience. So let's give you an experience. Let's give you an experience, and you start telling me how you're feeling about all this. And that's the beauty of the work, right? It's that no one wants to be told what to do, Brian, because it's not their truth until it is their truth.
Right. Well, like we said, there also is like giving them an experience, because that's what people believe. I can tell you all day long, how this works for me and how I do things, but it's really a matter of them going out and having their own experience. So I like the idea that you're presenting of something that's accessible to everyone, because again, there's a lot of pushback when we get into certain words or something else for me to do. I don't have time, but everybody can squeeze in 3 to 6 minutes a day, I would hope, to take care of yourself.
Yeah. Hope so too.
So I noticed you mentioned that you've been working with women for the last 20 years. Do you work with men, or can men read the book and get something out of it?
Absolutely. I think, you're a business person too, and the demographic is really, I've just turned 60, and my demographic really is like 35-year-old woman to about 65-year-old woman. That's the majority. So I have men clients, and I love working with them, but anyway, I just choose to say women because I think it's really.
I understand. Most of my clients are women, and my wife's not really happy about that. But, and people ask me, and I run in the after death community. I go to the conferences and stuff like that, and it's 85% women. But even the church that we were going to Unity Church. It was mostly women, and people have asked me like, "Where are the guys?" And I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the guys. But so I understand why you say what you say. I just wanted to, if there's a man that's listening to this, I don't want him to think, oh, well, I can't, go to Sarah because, she only works with women, or this book's only for women. Gender, I don't think matters, but I just want to put that question out there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
So, if I get the book, I mean, I know you're a coach and you're a teacher and everything, but can I work with the book on my own, or do I have to be a client?
Yes, you absolutely can. And even further so now because of the journal.
Mhm.
That's really going to guide you in a different way than the book can even guide you. And I also on my website have resources, and I'm just about to launch programs that I'm doing on Instagram that would allow people to follow along challenges and whatnot. Um, so the answer is absolutely, you can surely do this work on your own. I hope you can,
Yeah.
because I really can't do um, all this work with everybody. And I'm just so grateful there's people like you out there too, Brian, that offer these services, because you get busy, and I don't know how much longer, truthfully, I'll be able to do the personal work, one-on-one work that I do with clients.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Because as far as the clients that come to me, you talked earlier about, we're in a weakened state, and what I find is a lot of them think that they're weak people, and I'm like, you are not a weak. Every single client that's come to me has been an extremely strong person, and they've been through things that like would knock anybody down. But what happens is you get to a point where you're tired, and you don't have the right tools to cope with it, and you keep running into the same things over and over again, and they feel stuck. They just they feel like I don't even know where to turn. I was talking to this woman the other day, and she just started listing these things that had happened to her, and I said, first thing I always tell my clients is, you're a lot stronger than you realize. I mean, the fact that you're on the phone talking to me
That's
after
right.
all the things that you've been through, and you're still functioning. So, first of all, give yourself some credit. And what we're going to do is we're going to work on those areas. Like you said, what are the areas that are like out of balance that we need to focus on? And we'll work on those. And then we give them tools, so as life coaches, we don't solve your problems. You don't come to us and we say, yes, you should quit your job, or, this or that. But it's like, let's just help them to realize how much strength they have inside themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that first step is the most important step, isn't it? And really the ultimate act of self-care.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
exactly. So, Sarah, what else would you like to say about your book, about your work?
What would I like to say to you? I think right now what I'd like to say to you is um, really identifying your needs as far as, if you are in this heightened state of anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
understanding that there are very, very simple tools that can help you right now. But what it does require is dedicated practice. So if you have made the decision to work with a life coach and take the next step, do it in a way that is committed and guided. Because I think so much, a lot of the people that I work with, I require that they work with a therapist alongside, Brian,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm in the business of helping them, tease up this stuff, right? Let's identify it. What is it?
Yeah.
But I'm not a therapist, and they deserve that conversation. So at any point, if I have suggested that this would be the time to bring a therapist on board, it's really non-negotiable, because
Mm-hmm.
we can bring up things and then they don't know what to do with them, and it can be overwhelming fast. So teachers, guides, coaches, get somebody on your team. It's really important.
Yeah.
If you're serious about this and you want to take it to the next step, be in a process-oriented way rather than this result-oriented way. Create these systems, sustainable systems that you're practicing for the rest of your life, because that's the way that you're going to know extraordinary success.
Yeah. And I think the word practice does scare some people, but the thing is, what's the alternative? Is
Right.
what you're doing now working? Because I deal with a lot of people that are in grief, and grief is hard work. Grief is
Ugh.
exhausting. It's never ending, and it's hard work. But the alternative is just to let it knock you down.
Yeah.
So, these practices will help you. There's no quick cure. There's no quick fix. Even the pills, frankly, I don't think make you feel better. They just kind of numb the pain, and so sometimes we need that. I mean, sometimes we're in an extreme crisis. We do need that. So I'm not telling anybody to not take the pills and to not see a medical doctor and do those things we need to do to cope, but they're not going to heal you. And we want healing.
That's right. That's right. And I appreciate that you do say that about the drugs that people take to reduce the anxiety and depression, because sometimes we don't have any choice, right? And it can save lives, but it's not sustainable, right? It's at some point you are going to need to do the deep work of your life, or else you're going to have to take more pills. You're going to have to take more of whatever it is to try to keep yourself at some level of equilibrium.
So Sarah, are you taking new clients now?
I am.
Okay.
I am. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, I want to give your contact information. So it's www.sarahbrassard.com, and I'll spell that. It's SARAH, B as in boy, RASSARD.com. So we can reach you there, Sarah, find out more about your work and find out more about your book. I assume your book's available on Amazon?
It is. Both books are now. Yep.
Okay. And the book is Inside, A Guide to the Resources Within. And you can find that again by Sarah Brassard. Sarah, it's been great meeting you. And I really appreciate your book with a non-intimidating approach for people to get started on some really good self-care.
Thanks for the great interview. I appreciate it, Brian. So nice to talk to you.
All right, Sarah, you have a great day.
All right. Farewell.
Bye. Well, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I want to make it really easy for you to reach me. So just send me a text to 31996 and simply text the word growth, GROWTH. In fact, you can right now just say, "Hey Siri," send a message to 31996. And when Siri asks you what you want to send, just say growth. You can do the same thing with OK Google. Thanks a lot. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for listening to Grief to Growth. Brian hopes that you find this episode helpful and will come back for future episodes. Brian's best-selling book, Grief to Growth, Planted Not Buried, is a great resource for anyone who is coping with grief or knows someone who is. If you enjoy the podcast and would like to support it, there are 3 things you can do to help. The first is to share the podcast with someone that you think it will help. The second is to go to iTunes, rate, and review the episode. The third way you can support the podcast is by becoming a patron. Head over to www.patreon.com/grief2growth. That's patreon.com/grief, the number 2, growth, and sign up to make a small monthly donation. Patrons get access to exclusive bonus content and knowledge that you are helping to spread the message of grief to growth. For more about Brian and Grief to Growth, visit www.grief2growth.com.
Hi there. I hope you enjoyed this latest episode of the podcast, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. What questions came up for you? What did you like about it? What didn't you like about it? I invite you to visit us at grieftogrowth.circle.so. That's grief, the number 2, growth.circle.so to continue the conversation with me and with other listeners. It's a space to sound off, to share reactions, and to go deeper into the topics from the show. I look forward to chatting more, and I hope to see you there.